Hey, everybody. Welcome to Improv FAQ at Length. This is a series of longer conversations about improv topics that have lots of questions surrounding them. I'm James Quesada.
And I'm Bob Wick.
And we're joined by a special guest, my good friend, Collin Stanley.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Dude, thanks for being here. Collin,
Yeah,
Collin's one of my oldest, closest friends, and he's on the other side of this wall right here.
It's true.
That's awesome.
And also, so happy belated birthday. Not belated. We've been celebrating your birthday and Julia's birthday all weekend, but it's Collin's birthday weekend. My mom's birthday today. Happy birthday to my mom.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
So Collin, we were hoping to have you on to talk about branding.
Yep.
You are a musician, a guitarist, a music producer, and you've worked on a lot of projects, mostly as a part of a band and an ensemble. But earlier this year, you released your first solo EP, and right around the time that you were getting geared up to do that, you decided that you needed to have your own dedicated musician brand page for on Facebook and Instagram called Collin Stanley, and I've watched you do an amazing job of building a following for that account and your debut EP, and see success in branding and building an image and a following around yourself as a creative. So, and I've always thought that improvisers could take some lessons from the way that bands and musicians market themselves and brand themselves. So can we start just by talking about like what your thought process was when you first made your musician brand pages and like what you hoped to do and the strategy that you were going in with it?
Yeah, I think when I was first initially thinking through, should I have a separate Instagram or social media focused on my music stuff? I was like, did a bunch of research on it, and I think the biggest thing that kind of swayed me towards keeping it focused on music was I can control the conversation and the content.
Oh, yeah.
So it gave me the opportunity to curate my Instagram instead of just being the story or whatever, personal journey. It's more of this curated musical journey, and it kind of controls who I engage with, what kind of content I put on there. It also kind of allows me to focus on specific kinds of content, right? So like I have like, I'm no longer thinking, oh, what should I post? I kind of have a sense of, well, is it on brand? Is it pushing my musical journey forward? Is it kind of highlighting who I am as an artist and a creative? And it actually takes a lot of pressure off of the day to day too, because I'm like less worried about like sharing my personal life and more like focused of showing more of the musician lifestyle. So
yeah, and I guess I should say that like we can obviously apply a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about to improv and sketch teams, but also for people who are just content creators or doing comedy stuff. There so many people during the pandemic with the virtual stage, let's call it a boom in the virtual are doing like character work or just comedy bits that are more like solo driven. So there's also like Julia recently created Julia Schroeder comedy pages for her stuff because she's been doing like character bits and whatnot. So I just want to kind of like frame all the different types of things that will be transferable for the things that you've done to people in comedy and improv.
Yeah, I think it's also allowing for the expectation, right? So if I am going to a bagel shop, my expectation is I'm going to purchase a bagel, right? And
Right.
so it's that kind of same idea with the brand. If people are landing on my Instagram, the expectation is, oh, he's a rock musician, he has this kind of sound. So allowing that expectation is one side of it. And then like when like I think of it in terms of like comedy or like building bits, it's like if I want people to search for my content, I have to make sure that I use the terms I'm trying to get people to land on. So there's that the algorithmic kind of thought behind it too. It's like Instagram or these social medias, they have their own kind of SEO, right? The search engine optimization. So like if you feed it the content, it's going to suggest that content to other people who consume it, right? So it kind of comes full circle, which was also like the thought of like, okay, if I separate this, then I can focus it within this very niche, because we've had this conversation before too. Like the initial thought, it's like on Reddit, James and I like observe that like where's the worst place to put a piece of content if it's comedy is the comedy subreddit.
Oh yeah, because it's so saturated.
Because it's so saturated,
right?
And it's loaded with a bunch of uncurated, just
oh yeah,
yeah.
It's sorting through the junk mail to find the good stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And so like if you get better at like what there's like the one of like the accident, I can't remember the name of the subreddit, but if your specific piece of content lands with this specific place, then it makes more sense to put it there than this big broad stroke. Because it's like us as creative people, especially as we're like building our own brands or building our own content, we only have so much time to focus on the marketing part of it. And so like when we're trying to throw these darts and hit bullseyes, we have to like try and do our best to be specific as we can and place the content in places that is going to get someone to engage with it. The comedy group, it's just not a great place to land it. You know what I mean? It's in theory, it sounds like it would be, right?
Yeah. So I love that you pointed out one, the curation, and people's expectations of what they're getting from your page. I think those are super important for building an audience, because that's what an audience is, right? Is like they're gonna what do they want to go see? What do they want to take in? And being able to have a brand that lets them know is really important. And I think that like I know that like even though you have been doing such a great job with it, Collin, it's something that you were a little resistant to, as most artists are, right?
Yeah.
Is that like, I don't know if I want to go through the pain of creating another profile and building an audience for it, or if I'm doing enough to constitute like, having a whole thing. And I like, how do you kind of get over that? Like, what are your thoughts on like, for people who are like, I don't know if I should, like, how do you kind of explain the value or a switch in mindset?
Yeah, I guess the first switch is, why shouldn't you? It's like there's an audience on all these different platforms, and I'm guilty of what you just said, because when I first moved to New York, that was the first time I thought about getting Instagram, and I mean Instagram was out for years and years prior. And I was like, I don't want another social media to be on. I have no interest in this, being on all these different platforms. And then it dawned on me that, well, why are people using these platforms? Well, for specific reasons. Instagram for me has been a great way to connect with people all over the world, which has been unbelievable. Like I have people who I consistently talk to in Brazil and in Australia and France and all over the place. And without a tool like that, I wouldn't have been able to even connect. So when I think of like the research I've been like digging into, because I'm like, okay, I see the value of Instagram versus Twitter versus, Facebook and all these other platforms. But like, we're in TikTok age, which still right now I'm like, I don't know, TikTok, it's another platform. But then it's like having to reframe myself of going, it's actually one of the largest platforms for music promotion right now. You got YouTube and TikTok. They're like top places where people are discovering new music. And so like you have to like get over oh, well, I don't know. It seems like too much work, and just be like, well, there's an audience on every single one of these platforms. And, it's like, you want to focus your attention on the ones that make the most sense for your style, right? If you're image driven, right? Or if you're like short bit driven, Instagram lends itself to it. But like, even I think of like a comedian, you can really hammer out some really quick short bits with like TikTok, and Facebook has the largest community. So like you can, reach the most people, but it's like all of them have their ups and downs, right?
Yeah. And you really do have to kind of play with them all. Like,
yeah. And then it seems like each one has their own like culture to it, for lack of a better term. Like, and you have to learn that, and so you don't make any faux pas that would get you the negative attention.
Yeah. What I like to call it is passing the amateur test. Like, just have to. There's got to be on every single thing. Like, no, that's not the norm, or like this person's new here. Like, and I just want to. That's my big anxiety with getting on. I just started using Reddit, and it's like, what do people use the title for, or like, I don't know. It's just takes that uncomfortable getting started stage to just learn the norms and all that. So yeah, I think for me, the thing you said, Collin, that like you have fans that are all over the globe, which is so cool. And I think for me, well, like what I'm self-conscious about, on top of the like learning the culture or the norms of the platforms, is like I'm always thinking about like how it's going to make me look for the people in my immediate circle. And whether that is like, oh, it's going to make me look self-absorbed, or it's going to make me look corny because I'm like whatever promoting my image. But like I think what the value that you need to think about is that like there's people that don't know you. You're trying to build an audience of people that don't know you,
right?
Maybe even more so sometimes than people who do know you. Like people who know you are going to love and support you and be like, cool, you're doing your thing. But more than likely, the audience that you're trying to build is people that you do not know, and you have to look at what you're doing through the lens of strangers across the country or the world that are on the internet too, looking for what you're doing.
Yeah. I remember I was working, I did like catering for years in New York, and we did this event at Hearst's headquarters, which is, they control some of the big publications, and like Vice and stuff, they own that. And their chief marketing officer was giving this lecture, and I was kind of bartending, and I got to kind of overhear some of the concepts. And he said, great marketing is the intersection of branded storytelling and great data analytics. So like there's the science and this art to kind of figure out what your brand is and how you can measure that. And I think it's like, if you do all this work to get people to land on your content, it's like, how can you tell your story of who you are within a few posts? So it's like, if they go back through my thread, oh, he's a musician, he's a guitar player, he's from Detroit, oh, he's been in bands, oh, he's started producing music. Like they can visually see the story, and maybe I sprinkle some videos in there. And so like that is kind of been my thought of the curation too, is like, for people who don't know who I am, if I've done all this work and I got them, boom, to land on my social media, how can they discover some of my story and get to know who I am within 20 images, 20 little video
the
clips.
Highlights.
And go ahead.
And then measuring it, that's how do you measure that? Because that's the other side of it. This is why artists maybe don't like always are like, because you have to like, it's this like, it's math and science blended together, and it's not that simple, but it's like, you can measure, okay, this post got this much engagement. I can look at my hashtags. I can see that 60 people came from hashtags. It had this much organic reach,
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I'm curious. So when you are creating content, do you create an overall concept, and then for lack of better terms, have to break it down. Okay, I'm going to do this big concept. I'm going to do it this way for Facebook. Going to do it this way for Instagram. Going to do this way for TikTok. And do you do just one concept at a time and just bit by bit so it could be as recent as possible? Or do at the beginning of every month, like, I'm just going to make 30 videos and release one every day?
It's a great question. And the short answer is I do a little bit of both. I'm still I'm still figuring out my voice as an artist, as a creator, as a marketer. But what I've been doing so far is not trying to judge the content without having context. Because James and I were talking about this before, like coming up with 50 ideas and not thinking about if they're good or bad, just getting ideas out there and then taking a step back and going, which ideas make the most sense to group together. So make a bunch of content and then figure out how to market it. That's kind of the idea that where I'm at like today. So, the concept is essentially macro to micro content. So if you got like a 10-minute video, you put out the 10-minute video and then you slice it up into little pieces to constantly be driving people back to the 10-minute video. So maybe they weren't sold when you first put out the piece of content. Maybe they're like, 10 minutes, I can't commit to it. But if you put out like a couple 30 seconds clips, maybe they consume that and they're like, oh, that was cool. And maybe they watch another one. And then you put out a 2-minute clip. Oh, they'll watch that. And the next thing you know, they're more willing to consume that 10-minute piece of content.
This I think is really, really useful for people in doing sketch and podcasts, especially because podcasts are so long and including ours. Like you can't expect people to be like super willing to just dive into a full hour-long experience. I think that taking is one, and then two, because podcasts are so long, you have so much content to deconstruct and pull into these clips to give people a little sample of what you're doing. And even for sketch, it's like I feel like people, if you see a great sketch, maybe like a 5-minute video sketch, I've discovered that I'm not great with video, and I'm always like really impressed that like when people do it well for sketch or like music videos, it like I'm like, wow, this is awesome. And there's a lot of production. People are really organized, even in like a low to zero budget indie production, that really get these pieces of great content produced. And then it's like they release the video, they promote it, they share it and stuff. But it's also like, well, if it's a 5-minute video, you might be able to just do like a little clip, like a little funny moment. Just break it down,
like a trailer almost, like a tiny little trailer.
It could be a trailer, or it could just be a self-contained little thing. Make people go like, if it can hook you and go like, oh, this is kind of funny. Like then you might pay attention. It like trying to figure out things that make me as an audience. See the content and then go and then look at the name of where it came from. If I'm scrolling through Instagram and it's a meme and I'm like, I like this sense of humor, or YouTube, Facebook, wherever, and seeing a video that's like, the fuck is this? Like, this is fun. This is fun. It gets me to stop and look at what the name is. Then I'm more likely to either like the page or see if it's something that keeps catching my attention, and then be like, oh, I like this group or what these people are doing.
And you're more likely to subscribe and follow that rabbit hole.
And I think of it in terms of my consumption habits too. So it's like I open my phone or my computer browser, and how do I consume through the content, and what's catching my eye? And is it visual? Is it the audio? Is it the copy? And then that's like maybe where an artist can start. So we're talking about how to build a brand and how to, build upon your content. Is how are you currently consuming content, and just spend the day or a week just thinking through how you've been consuming and what's been catching your eye. And because like a lot of these concepts are, how do we grab someone's attention? But attention is cheap. How do we get them to engage into the content? You know what I mean? Oh, that was an interesting bit. How do you know that? And then they're on to the next. So it's like this creating this consistent, like, trail of content.
Yeah, and again, and it could be anything from like a logo or an intro way that you do, kind of like frame things. There's things about the imaging too that are like, if you see it enough times, it becomes recognizable.
Totally.
And again, I agree. Obviously, the most ideal outcome is like getting someone's attention and then to engage, share it, like, comment, and play with it, have fun with it as an audience. But also, sometimes it's a slow burn of just getting them to see what your name is, or to realize that they've seen something like this twice before, and they recognize it because the style that it's done in, or the intro music or opening titles screen. You know what I mean? Little things that are consistent that can be like, stamp it with that brand.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, specifically with like comedy and comedy videos, I noticed like the trend has been like just introduction of an unusual character. Like if you see like the stuff that Garrett does, it's just him doing really cool characters and just doing a quick monologue. His videos are never longer. I wouldn't say never, but it's usually around 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Like just enough for you to get introduced to this character. And now people have consumed so many of those clips, they are familiar with that character. So now you can take this character that people are familiar with and put it into a sketch or even something longer. Like let's see what a day in the life of this character is, because now we're hooked.
Yeah, and that's really cool too to think about. Is like you get the chance to try things out too.
Yeah.
And what I like about maybe a way of thinking of the social media is you can kind of get direct feedback too. Because if people are liking it or engaging to it or commenting on it, that is feedback. That is saying, I found this content interesting. I found this content engaging. And you can kind of run through, different kinds of, bits and in real time. And then the ones that kind of have gotten feedback, you can take that and build it out further. I love that idea.
Yeah. So, okay, there's a few things that I really want to make sure that we talk about, and one of them is going to be obviously like some things that have worked for you, Collin, and I think that's going to open up a can of worms of like how much work really goes into doing this kind of stuff, and how much time it really takes. So before we get to that, one thing I want to talk about is time as a creative, because I think if you set your own expectation about how much time it's going to take to effectively market and release a successful piece of content, then you're going to be better off. I'm guilty of this, of just like plowing through to the next thing all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
The time it really takes to promote and market something. But Collin, you, the EP that you released this year, you had done like a few months before you released it, and you really sat and meditated on what you wanted to do with it and took your time to pick the right date and get some things taken care of. So like, what are your thoughts on, like, can you just describe what in your mind the appropriate amount of time to be spending in the like pre-producing, producing, and then post promotion?
Yeah.
Oh, really quick before we get started, did we tell you, to everybody who's listening, the name of your EP and where they can find it? Because I can't remember if we did that before we hit record or after, and I don't want people like, just looking for
Collin Stanley, Collin Stanley, because there's another one out there. And the EP is called Can't Go Home, and you can find it on all your major streaming services. Right now, I think I'm pushing my Spotify the most, so check it out.
Yeah.
There's a website too. Was it
CollinStanley.com? Yeah, CollinStanley.com. 2 L's.
Oh, it's spelled in the corner there. We get
okay.
I know I was helping the folks at home, really.
Yeah. So
the process,
how did your mindset change in releasing Can't Go Home, in terms of the time you spent working on the songs, recording the songs, and then promoting the EP when it was released?
Yeah, it's a good question. Let me backtrack a little bit. So when I first moved to New York, I was brought out here by my close friend Tiffany, and we put together this band called DD White. And DD White is great music. Also, check it out on Spotify. Really awesome stuff. I'm very proud of that project. But we experimented a lot about imaging and branding and like booking, and she focused on the music creation, and I kind of took the business side of it. So there was this, my background, my degree is in arts management, and I worked for an agency in Washington, D.C. for a bit. So I kind of did have professional experience with kind of organizing through, campaigning. Essentially, we'd have to sit in these marketing meetings and we'd get a content calendar out, boom. And over the next 3 months, there's this holiday's happening. We can push these things, and then so on and so forth. So it was constantly a 3-month process. So that idea of 3 is important in my head. Now, I took my time with my EP because it was my first solo project, and give yourself as much as you can, because if you're rushing it, you don't gain much from rushing it. You gain way more from taking your time, like with the promotion. But as far as like from the pre-production to the final distribution and marketing of it, I think you should spend as much time thinking through production, pre-production, and creation as you do marketing. I think it should be an equal amount of time, and you have to view them as the whole process, not separate things. It's like, if I'm going to put out a piece of content, it starts with pre-production, it ends with the final marketing campaign. And it's this, and then you break it down into pieces. And like James and I, we work on tons of content, and we have our other partner, Chris, and we've gotten really, really, really good at producing. And so now it's like, how can we match that with the production? So backtracking to the EP, I wanted to make sure that I did it the way I wanted it. I didn't want to rush it because I wanted to push it out there. I wanted to take my time, made sure I had the right album cover, make sure I had all the copyright in there, and do it as best as I could with the resources I had. So, and then learning from the previous experiences with the bands I've been in and just professional work I've done, of like, okay, I know how much work it takes, and I know it's a lot of work, but I can just take one piece at a time, and there's no real rush. Just get the pieces done. You might not nail everything 100% on the way through, but like going through that whole process, you can refine. This is what I love about working with James. James's big philosophy is push it out and refine. Keep going, because the more you do, the better you get. So it's like, run the whole process, and then you can always assess and improve along the journey, right?
Yeah, and there's no and there's no mention of marketing in there.
Yeah.
My thing is just run the process and keep going.
yeah, but you know what though? It's like, you do have a marketing brain, and you're a great copywriter, and you're really good at framing, man. One of the best, one of the greatest people I've ever met at being able to frame.
Yes.
Well, thank you. I mean, I've been trying to build, but I've really been taking a lot of tips from you, Collin, and so I want to know, like, the time that you decided to take the extra time for gearing up for the release of Can't Go Home. What did that afford you that you would have missed out on if you tried to get it out as soon as it was done, and just sort of throw the ball and chase after it? Like, what sorts of things did you do with that time where you waited and were more patient about it?
I curated my social media. So I knew that I had the opportunity to reach people that didn't know who I was. The advantage of putting your music on Spotify or putting it on Deezer or these other streaming platforms, Apple Music, is the algorithm will suggest it to people who don't know who you are. So taking my time allowed me the chance to create the story I wanted to tell. And people don't know who I am. It was my first solo release. So I wanted to make sure people could, I had to build the website too. And so I'm like, I can't put this EP out unless I build a website. And so that was another part of it, is like, I want to make sure I have all I want to set myself up with as much ability for people to consume content of mine as possible. YouTube, Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram, Spotify. When you go to a Spotify page, you have to have, your images there too. You have the opportunity of writing and copy there. So, I wanted to have all these things so I could launch it. So now when I get to release more music, I already have the foundation. I have to build that foundation, and I kind of knew what I wanted. If that makes any sense.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
You had the thing reviewed too, right?
I had it reviewed. Yep.
Oh,
yeah. Well, and that's where it's like, I get really obsessive with things. I'm not always the most accurate person, but I will keep going. I like this nonstop it's not, it's like, it's obsessiveness, but it's also like, I see the larger vision. And I think as we dig more into our creative, journey, we start to understand what the process is. 5 years ago, or like, let's say when I first moved back to Detroit from DC, like 2012, I was like, I'm going to be a musician. But I didn't even know what that meant. I didn't realize the amount of rehearsal it takes, the amount of endless telling your friends you're playing, trying to do studio sessions. I could play guitar well, but like, I wasn't a studio musician, so I had to learn how to like actually play. And so it's just been this kind of, collective compound obsession of trying to be as best as I can be. And then what's beautiful now in 2020 is I see a path. It doesn't mean there's less work. It actually means there's more work. But you know what? I see it. I see where I can go. And that keeps me just going for it.
Yeah, I mean, and there's nothing more encouraging than actually getting the results that you're hoping for, which you have. The EP, the Underground, has gotten a shit ton of streams, and is one of the ones that has been getting you that global pockets of people that are interested. Now that we've kind of talked about like how much time it takes, I think it's also important to just kind of like, it doesn't matter if you are trying to make money off of this. That's a whole ton of work.
Right.
This is about building an audience, right? And there's a difference, because you can have an audience and not make money. But as creative people, we want to rush to the fun stuff and write and create and put it out there and be like, what do you guys think?
Yeah.
But that was perfect.
Yeah. And whatever your goal is, I think the most common basic goal is to get it seen, to get it received, or heard, get an audience. So these are things that like you can put in as much. You're going to get out whatever you put into it. And so I think that saying, Collin, that like the amount of time that you put into pre-production and production of content, you should match that amount of time and put that into marketing, because I know better than anyone how much I can have fun and come up with what I think are really cool ideas and put them out there and feel really happy with how they turned out. And the few amount of people that end up seeing it, I get really good feedback, but I'm not really building an audience. And it kills me. The thought the thought of waiting for like a month, 2 months, 3 months, and biding my time leading up to a release, that is painful to me to think about, like, because it means that I'm not working on the next thing. But if the result is to actually build an audience, then it's worth it. Once you have a bigger audience, you can churn stuff out faster. And there's more of an audience there waiting for it or interested in it. But if you don't have it yet, it's that much more important to be like, oh, no matter how many ideas I have, I if I want to see an audience from any one of them, it's going to be taking that appropriate amount of time to promote it.
Yeah. And like, you don't have it can be overwhelming thinking about it in this, oh man, I got to do this, and this, but focus on one thing at a time. If we're talking about Can't Go Home, the EP, what I decided to focus my attention on was rebranding, recurating my Instagram. And that's driven people to my other social media. It's driven them to the Spotify. It's that focus on that one piece of the puzzle has allowed me to go, okay, I'm motivated to continue on some of the other stuff, but at least I have one platform that is where I want it to be. And that's like, starting with that. It's like, okay, if I want to focus on TikTok, I want to focus on TikTok, then that's going to be, give it your undivided attention for, X amount of time. I mean, I spent a lot of time redoing my Instagram.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I have all these different, I was reading tons of stuff on how to do it. And there's a lot of bad content on how to market. So you kind of have to take everything with a grain of salt. Cause like what I found works, it works, but it's labor intensive. So there, like, Instagram allows you to see the clock of how many times, how long you've been on it. And like, I think in April, I was hitting the 10-hour mark consistently for like,
oh God.
Yeah, for like a week, 2 weeks. I mean, yeah. So that's because I had that undivided goal, and I don't want to spend 10 hours on Instagram anymore. I did it. I rebranded it, did what I wanted. It's slowly growing now. It's not about having 10,000 followers. It's about having people who want to see your content. That was a big lesson. It's like, you see the numbers, like, oh, I want to have so many followers. But like, truthfully, if you have 2,500 people who want to watch your content, then that's really, that's the goal.
Yeah. And you can have fun with it too, if that's what's happening, because if the more that what you're putting out there, if you do the work to think about and curate what your brand is and what's on your social media, and the more that matches like what you want to be doing and the kinds of things that you want to be creating, the more that you're going to attract people who are going to actually be fun to interact with. Collin, you have messages back and forth, people who are coming up and learning guitar or want to swap stories of live concerts they've been to or favorite albums and stuff like that. And it's like, if it wasn't stuff that you were actually interested in, your taste in music, then it'd be like, but if they want to have a real conversation about like AC/DC, and you're like, let's talk about it.
I'm going to give some real great nuggets. So anybody who's listening this deep into the conversation gets some really good tips right now. Here are some of my secrets I've been doing. Ooh. So one is sharing things that you think people that you're talking to like I'll share songs. I'll send a song to somebody and be like, hey, check this song out. I think you'd really dig it, or I've given feedback. Someone has a guitar is playing and be like, that's a great lick. And I've had people ask me, oh, well, how can I get faster? I'll grab my phone and I'll voice it of like, oh, here's something you can do. Here's a tip to help you become faster guitar. And I'll just literally send them a voice message on Instagram, or I'll take a little video of me doing the part for them and just send it off. Or I'll ask people to send me their playlists and I'll listen to their playlists and, tell them the songs that I really loved on it. Like taking that time to invest back into those people who, taking the time to like my content, because there's this relationship, and it's like I can't just push and not like build that relationship. So those things, and then like getting people to land onto your page. Well, once you can get them there, how do you keep them there? How do you keep them engaged? Like I find something I do is any of the hashtags I use, I go hit the hashtag 30 minutes before the post. I engage with as much content as I can. I put up my post, and then I go back to that hashtag in 30 minutes after. So I'm engaging with the content that's using the similar hashtag. So it gets people come into my page. This is the little secret. You can't expect somebody to just watch the content. You kind of have to kind of stimulate it, meaning you got to do the engaging. You got to be engaging with as much content as you want people to engage into yours. And that's kind of that's why it takes so much time, because you got to have that. You can't just be pushing. You got to be a consumer of other people's content too.
Yeah. And, man, when it comes to like the fun side of it, again, the more authentic you are to whatever it is that you want to do, the more likely it is going to be that the creating the copy and the content and all these different posts and engaging with people, the more likely it is it's going to be fun, as long as you're really chasing what you are having fun with, and you really enjoy doing.
Yeah.
The example that from experiences is Serious Gear.
Yeah.
One thing that we didn't expect with it's a parody audio gear channel, and one of the things we didn't expect was how fun it would be for when people start commenting and yes-anding the stupid advice and tutorials and fake science that we're proposing, and people start building on it, and then we get to engage and riff in the comments with people, and like that's fun because we like doing that. We're audio nerds and we're comedy people, and when that's what we attract in the comments and we get to riff off them, that's such a fun surprise. And I think if as long as you do that with what your brand is, that you can be surprised how like all this work in like engagement and all these like buzzwords that feel so icky, that it actually is fun as long as you're putting out there what you want to receive back from your audience.
Yeah. And like hitting on the Serious Gear side of it, it's building that community around the content, which is also kind of fun. Is like you build the culture of people commenting and having fun with the content, which is, we can only control it so much, right? We can't force anyone to comment. We can't force anybody to watch it. But man, nothing is more fun than to see people enjoy the content and have fun, and we can build these kind of dialogues, and some of those they're really funny, and some of the funniest things have not been from us. They're from like the people engaging with it. And it's cool, like you're like, wow, it's like, and what keeps you motivated too is like, man, we've gotten comments like, man, this piece of content has really made my day, and thank you so much. And those kind of comments are incredibly motivated, because we can get into our heads of like, oh, no one cares, no one's watching. Well, the thing is, people are looking for content, and they want a release from the craziness that's happening in our world right now. And you have to remember that there are people looking for your content. It's your job to try and put it into their hands. It's not your job to judge if it's good or bad. It's your job to put it out so they can consume it. And you'll get the feedback. You'll learn if it's good or bad, is how I look at it. It's like, what I mean? It's just like,
they'll tell you.
They'll tell you if it's good or bad. Don't focus on so much of like, hey, I don't know if it's good or bad. It's more of like, the fact that we even decided to make this kind of content. We knew going into it, there are people who hate Serious Gear.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, because but like again,
they feel trolled or spammed.
Yeah.
We've been running ads, and like Colin said, sometimes it feels like you're spamming people. And for every, it's two sides of a coin, right? Like some people are going to be like, I'm so sick of seeing these fucking ads, and then
really, wow.
and then it's like, oh, I don't want that. But then somebody else says, this has been a really tough time for musicians, and it's really gotten me through a hard time. And thanks for bringing some comedy to our industry. And it's like, how cool is that? And it's like, you gotta just be like, I don't know. I want more of the people who are happy about it and less of the people who are pissed about it. But still, you're gonna run across both of them.
It's funny, man. It's like, I think of it in terms of this. It's like, if I was trying to push my music to people who only listen to EDM, what a waste of my time, right? It's like audio people, they're brilliant and they're very serious about what they do. And some of them are so serious that they can't take a moment to laugh at themselves. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's a beautiful thing, but we're looking for the people who can't.
Right?
Yeah. So two things. One, let me just interject. We should have said this at the beginning. But anybody who is watching, if you have questions on the topic of branding that are specific to whatever you're doing or just curious about with Improv Sketch, any other kind of content creation, feel free to chime in. If you have questions for Collin about the stuff that he does or specifics on some of the stuff we've talked about, we have a little bit of more time here left to get those questions. In the meantime, one of my thoughts, we've talked about this on previous episodes, how like sketch teams or improv teams, especially, at least my experience, I don't think this is as common in smaller markets, but like I know like New York and LA, you get on a team and people are like, boom, let's do a Facebook page and start creating events for our shows and stuff. And it seems like wisdom, especially in the conversation that we're having currently. But I think there's another extreme where it's like you are too early into what you're doing to put all this time into building a brand if you're not sure what it is yet.
Yeah. You have a page, but it's empty.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
You can also rush the building of like the kind of content you took. You commissioned someone to do artwork for Can't Go Home and commissioned someone to give it a good review and listen. And it's like that. The money aside, it's like you didn't just whip it together because you needed it and put it up there.
Yeah.
You can rush those things too and sell yourself short. So what are your thoughts on that, Collin?
I remember our good friend Ruwan talking about this. He was putting out a podcast, and his philosophy was don't release it till there was 10 episodes. And in the sense of give people something to consume. Like you're going to make a Facebook page and not have photos and not have bits ready to go. I would say hold off until you have enough content for people to stay on your page for 20 minutes or whatever arbitrary time you want. But you can't making the page and having no content for it. Yeah. It's a waste of your time. You should just focus more on getting the content, especially if it's a new group. If it's a new group, this would be my recommendation. Focus on content, get the content organized, campaign the release. Campaign it. Don't just go, I made a Facebook page, go new and hit them. Like have a plan of the launch, because that's gonna give you so much more of a return. And it gives you a clear focus of like, okay, we're not focused on social media right now. We're focused on getting our content together and organizing it. So when we do go, we can launch it with excitement. You want people to be excited that you have social media now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Plus there's more variety, if you only have one sketch up and you know how long it takes to write, film, edit, produce your sketch, having a few up there so they don't have to wait so long. You want to be a little more consistent. Like you said, having 10 episodes is great because, a lot of the times your first attempt is not going to be a solid intent. It's
Right.
going to be part of your learning process. So having something up there that it's a little, not as good as it could be, it's still something. Like you said, like you shouldn't judge your content, but having that, giving someone the ability to see where you're progressing to, and also just being consistent, it's nice. Because again, if you have those 10 episodes, you're not working on your 11th, and they have to wait for a while, they're not going to come back, or it's going to be hard. You're going to have to try to recapture the same audience over and over again, rather than capturing and having them loyal.
And it's kind of a weird thought process too, of like, the content's not dead unless you call it dead, in the sense of just because you put it out, like this video, say we do it today, people might find incredible value in it in 4 years from now, and like some of the other content you do. And I think of it in terms of like the music that I've done years ago. There's people who've never heard it. It's not dead. None of it's dead. So like, you put out the 10, and then you can slowly be pushing people back to them within the next 10 weeks. So now you got them out there. Maybe they caught one episode, and then you highlight, and then you kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
And so remembering that, like, just because it's released doesn't mean you can't still market it.
Yeah. Jeff Horst, our comedian friend.
Oh yeah.
Really great job on his branded channel of he'll literally just be like, hey, I've gained a bunch of followers since the last time I posted this, so here it is again.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Exactly.
For those of you who haven't seen it, so it's like you can also find little ways to like acknowledge that that's what you're doing. If your worry is that you look, what is it going to make you look disorganized or not unself-aware, like just give a nod to the fact that you're doing it, and problem solved.
Yeah. And it's all in how you staying motivated. And it's like this is your biggest, tool. And it's also the biggest thing that holds you back. Is like, oh man, is it good? Is it bad? Blah, 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 blah. But then you just have to like go, let me just try something else. Let me focus. Let me do something different. And like, I've been still pushing my EP. I have new stuff coming soon. I haven't announced it yet, but I will soon. And
real quick, what are the I know you're kind of building your way up to it, so what are like the details that are available right now on an upcoming release?
I have some new music coming out soon.
That's it. Cool.
That's it. That's all I'm going to say. I've been working on some
Improv FAQ exclusive.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, that's awesome. And I didn't mean to interrupt.
No.
I wanted to give you a chance to, but so I think one of the struggles is for improv, especially because like for sketch teams, or video creators, it's more like a band where it's like, okay, if you're a sketch team, just like a band, you can call yourself a band, but you're not a band until you have some songs, and those songs don't really matter until you rehearse them and then perform them. And then so that's one-to-one, like the same process for sketch. So there's a little bit more upfront investment in just getting the thing started. Whereas improv, you can just be like, we're a team.
Yeah.
Tomorrow. Like,
yeah.
And that's just as true online as it was in live shows. So like, I think just throwing out the improv specific advice is that like, I would say, one, wait like 3 to 6 months before while you're doing shows. And I know it's not in the control of like improv teams all the time when your first show is. Sometimes you're booked for this or that or put together by a theater, but like wait a few months before you start doing things. Take your time if you can to get the content, which in the case of an improviser is more about like get some like videos and selfies and group photos and have fun doing photo shoots and writing
short form games, do something, make it fun.
Yeah. And write up like a bio and figure out if you want to do like a fictional identity or just I don't know, get creative with the way that you're writing up and putting together the branding content over the course of 3 to 6 months. And I think that if by that point you're still like, yes, this is a team we're going to be with for a while, and we've had a little bit of time to figure out like what kind of shows we want to do and who we are, then you're in a much better position than just doing it right out the gate. As much as it's good advice to do it eventually, it doesn't need to happen right away, or you might be stuck with a shitty Facebook page that you have to like pull apart and rebrand later anyway.
Yeah, and there's a lot of noise on social media too. So navigating through it without like engaging content is just it's kind of a waste of your effort, right? Because it's like if you don't have any content on it and there's a bunch of noise already around it, why would someone want to like it? They're like, I don't know what they're going to say. I don't know what it is. Why do I care? There's no content on it. Why would I like this? You know what I mean? Like if you think of it in the sense of that. And I think that one quick point on what you were saying is like D.D. White, the band, that in New York for me, we got really good at knowing every time we had a show, like we got to make content. Like we're already playing live. Let's make sure we're getting video. Let's make sure we're capturing sound. Let's make sure we're getting some images. It was always in our head. Every single time we did a show, we were thinking about what kind of content can we also be creating to use at a later date. Because that's the other thing. Once you have it, you got it. Boom. Yeah. And you don't have to give it all away right now. You can kind of keep it close and sprinkle it through the next year. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, I don't have a really strong answer for what the equivalent of that is for the virtual. We could have a whole nother conversation about getting people to come see live shows if that was a relevant thing right now.
Right.
Yeah. But there is a version of it that I'm sure you can find as a group for doing virtual shows. There's teams that my advice is like get somebody to draw or Photoshop a cool poster image and do that on a regular basis. I don't know. You guys have thoughts on like how do you make use of like Zoom recorded stuff for improv teams, or is it worth it, or like just keep it fun and forget about it, or what?
I've been seeing a lot of really funny, like I feel they're manufactured of like, the guy walks away and he's got no pants on thing, it's a fake office meeting, like coming up with leaning into the medium and creating content that way. And like, we can all just be like different. You could create a photo. You can do things that is focused on content that you're not, and you know what I mean?
Yeah. You just have fun with it. Like if you're committed to figuring it out, you will. And just as long as you're not rushing to it, take the time that it deserves. If it's something that you're really serious about. Yeah. Okay. Thanks so much for joining us, Collin. This has been an awesome conversation. Was there anything else you wanted to throw out there? Obviously, you have Can't Go Home available everywhere. Something else coming soon. We talked about Serious Gear. Any other plugs?
Just my Instagram is Collin COLLIN _Stanley. Feel free to check me out on there, and that can lead you to the other stuff. Also, check out Serious Gear.
We'll make sure that we link to everything.
Right.
Yes.
If you think of anything else, just let me know, and we'll.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, just knock on the wall. He'll answer.
James has a Halloween album coming out.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he does.
I don't know. I might see if we could talk about it once it gets released. There'll be like a week. Maybe we can do something like we did with De Bureau.
I would love to.
That'd be cool.
Okay. So thanks again, Collin. Thanks
buddy,
for tuning in. And Devin says, "Oh, this is a good topic." And I think
thanks, Devin.
Thanks for joining, Devin. And
hi, Devin.
We'll catch you next time on Improv FAQ at length. Bye.
Bye.